This is the Ohio ISP overview for families and guardians. And we want to welcome you. Thank you for attending. We're happy you're here. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself and the others that are joining me today. My name is Mandy Brooks. I'm a regional support facilitator with DODD. My region is down in Southwest Ohio, Region 3. And along with me is my fellow regional support facilitator, Rachel Roseman. She's in Region 1. Hi, Rachel. Also with us tonight is Lisa Allersmeyer. She's a regional coordination manager. She is on the west side of the state. And then her counterpart is Heidi Davidson, who's on the east side of the state. In addition, we have Heather Stubbs. She's the information technology supervisor. And also is Abby Shelton Williams, who's the information technology training team. So thank you guys for all being a part of this tonight. We're happy to share the information about Ohio ISP. We will be providing an opportunity for questions and answers following the presentation. You can also, throughout the presentation, feel free to put your questions into chat. If you're using the Teams app, the chat can be found at the top row to the left of the Leave button. And if you're using the web browser, it's in the bottom part of the window. Is that right, Abby? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was just putting a message in the chat. So you might see a little red dot on your screen. That's what the chat is, just to make it a little bit easier to find. But yes, it will be further down on your screen if you're using the web version.
Fantastic. Thank you, Abby. And we will we want to make sure that microphones are on mute so everyone can hear the person speaking. Again, this webinar will be recorded, so no worries if you want to watch it again, or if you know of someone who wanted to attend but wasn't able to, they will be able to see it on the Ohio ISP webpage once we get it up there. So let's go ahead and get started. These are the three objectives that we plan to discuss tonight. Our focus, again, is for families and guardians. And discussing an understanding of why the Ohio ISP was important and how we got to this point with the Ohio ISP. We'd also like to take time to explain the steps to completing an Ohio ISP and what it might look like, give you an idea of what that would look like for the person that your loved one or the person that you support, and educate on how to use the Ohio ISP online system. So these are our three objectives that we would like to achieve tonight. So let's start off. We'd like to begin by sharing this brief video that's geared towards those with lived experiences. And this video was created to share an introduction to the Ohio ISP. Once it starts playing, if you guys could give me a thumbs up that you do hear it. Thanks.
Ohio ISP Introduction for People with Developmental Disabilities. What is the Ohio ISP? The Ohio Individual Service Plan, also called the Ohio ISP, is your plan, your ideas, your visions, the goals you have for your life, and your successes and achievements. Your plan helps you communicate the services and support you want and need. There are 88 counties and over 450 ICFs in the state of Ohio, and before the Ohio ISP, this meant there were over 500 ways that a plan could be completed. So if you move from one county or facility to the next, you would need to complete your plan all over again. With the Ohio ISP, it is now one plan that is used across the state. Your plan belongs to you, and it follows you wherever you want to go in the state of Ohio. How does creating your plan work? Well, it's about teamwork. Anyone you want can be on your team. Conversations will take place throughout the year with your team, discussing things that you may want or need others to know about you. The plan is there to support you. Self-advocacy. As a self-advocate, you know your rights, speak up for yourself, problem solve with your team, and find support. Getting services you want, instead of getting only what is offered, is so important. It's okay to ask for help. We all need help sometimes. Being a self-advocate will assist you in getting the support you need. What you should know about the Ohio ISP. The Ohio ISP is easy to use and understand. Your Ohio ISP can be accessed wherever you go and whenever you want. Your Ohio ISP can be shared with your team at any time. Videos, photos, and documents can be easily uploaded to your profile to share with your support team. By using the chatter feature, the Ohio ISP supports better communication for your entire team. You should know there are two parts to the Ohio ISP, the assessment and the plan. The assessment. Through questions and conversation, you and your team will let others know what services are important to and important for you. The assessment truly drives your plan. The plan. The Ohio ISP places what is important to you and for you in the center of the planning. You will lead the planning process by making choices, setting goals, and deciding how you want to live your life. You can do this by talking to your team, thinking about what is important to you and for you, learning new things, and being creative on how you can get to the life you want. The planning process also helps get to how you need supported, services that can help, and how technology can be used to increase your independence. If you have questions, please reach out to Ohio ISP at dodd.ohio.gov.
All right, so that was an overview, a real introduction of the Ohio ISP. And so we want to talk about what kind of led us to this point. And here you see a word cloud. Through the beginning stages of developing the Ohio ISP, there were several town hall meetings that took place. And through those town hall meetings, we wanted to make sure we heard a variety of voices about people's hopes and fears regarding a single plan model and moving towards that in that direction. So on this word cloud, you can see that there's words that are larger. That means that those were reoccurring. So you see easier for providers, people wanting it to be person-centered, wanting it to be simple, user-friendly, and the list goes on. And then we also looked at the fears, and the fears were most oftentimes the exact opposite of what the hopes were. So people were fearful that it wouldn't be person-centered, or that it would be difficult, that it would be difficult to use, not user-friendly. And so from this information, the work group that created the Ohio ISP really used these reoccurring things: simplification, standardization, ease of use for direct support professionals, and portability to really drive their work, and considered that throughout the entire process in creating the Ohio ISP. So those were used as guiding principles. So we wanted to review the why of the Ohio ISP. It's really about supporting the person. It's not about the system. We want people to use a person-centered approach that leads to a written plan which details supports and resources that a person needs to really help them achieve their best life. Statewide standardization, like that video said, there were over 500 different ways in the state of Ohio to complete an ISP. And so if you're a direct support professional working for an agency in multiple counties, you would have to learn multiple ways of looking at an ISP. And so this allows for more efficient county to county transfers. The plan follows the person throughout the state of Ohio. So there's that portability that instead of if you moved from an ICF into a waiver home in a different county, you would have to start basically from scratch with the information. And so this actually follows the person from place to place. And it allows that consistency for that person, so they can build off the information from the existing plan. It streamlines the process so that SSAs and Qs can spend more time with the people that they're supporting, and it focuses on simplified language so that materials are easier to understand. And then also it is structured so that there is a place and a purpose for all information that needs to be included. We ensured that compliance was met through this process and have been working with ODH to ensure that they're on board as well. But it's really not just about the paper. It's about the information that is put into it and gathered through the team process and through speaking with all members of the team who support the person. So we thought it would be important to look at how the Ohio ISP began and where we've come since then. So this is a timeline that shows when the Ohio ISP actually began back in 2019. And it really was developed through a group of community partners. It included individuals receiving services, family members and guardians, providers and county boards, and others. Their input was helpful in creating the Ohio ISP. It was built on charting the life course and the core belief that all people have the right to live, love, work, and play, and pursue their life aspirations. The Ohio ISP really does place the needs of the person receiving the services in the center of the planning process. And those community partners have all worked to help create the assessment utilizing the Ohio ISP. During that time of 2019, we also began having people test the use of the assessment and gathered input from our partners such as ODH. And then in 2020, data from that testing was analyzed and updates were made based on the recommendations from those testers. In late 2020, an IT solution was selected, and county boards and ICFs were supported to choose to work with a separate vendor if that's what they chose to do. They could either use DODD's IT solution or a separate third-party vendor. And then ISP testing began during that time, during late 2020, and feedback continued to be gathered and updates were made based upon that. And then in 2021, customized training was developed, as well as we began the SSA and QIDP gatherings to further familiarize SSAs and Qs with the details of the assessment and plan, because we thought it was very important that conversations be happening and it be a very natural process for people to gather this valuable information. And so we wanted to ensure that Qs and SSAs were very familiar with the assessment, with the questions in that assessment, so that it could be a natural process for all involved. And then in 2022, counties and ICFs began to use both the Ohio ISP online system as well as other third-party vendors. So you see on the slide, we had our first county board on board in April, our first ICF onboarded in May, and all 6 developmental centers have onboarded this year as well. And we continue to onboard as we continue in 2022. So just wanting to call out some important dates. In the rule, it stated that county boards and ICFs need to begin using the Ohio ISP no later than September 1st of this year. Okay. Director Hauck put out a memo that no citations would be issued based on the implementation of Ohio ISP until after January of 2024. So we would expect that everybody would be in Ohio ISP by January of 2024. And really, it is an attempt to allow teams to continue to revise their processes and ensure that really valuable information is obtained and gathered, and that plans are driven by the person. So now that we talked a bit about the history of how the Ohio ISP came to be, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel, and she'll walk us through taking a deeper look into what is included and how a plan looks. Rachel?
Thank you, Mandy. Okay. The Ohio ISP consists of 3 equally important sections. So the plan starts out with assessment. Assessment then drives and develops the ISP. There's also a 1-page introduction, which is a quick look into the person, and it contains some of the most important things to know. So then we move into the assessment, which is the first part. The initial portion of assessment is the communication section. So the communication section identifies how the person can communicate their wants and needs. So we recognize that not everyone will be fully able to lead this process, at which time the team can collectively discuss and determine if there's a team member closest to that person to help support them in the process, or maybe there's multiple people that would help support them with communicating. So this section is also where you would identify who that person is. So all other assessment and planning builds from the core focus of how that person best communicates and how we can best communicate with them. We then have advocacy and engagement. This explores a person's valued roles, decision-making, leadership, their safety and security, which goes over the person's behavioral and emotional well-being, as well as level of supervision and support that may be needed. Their social and spirituality section, which focuses on a person's favorite activities, their faith, friendships, relationships, and daily life and employment. So this covers school, education, employment, covers details about finances. So this section could look different based upon the age of the person. The community living section focuses on a person's life in and out of their home and how they get around. So this may also include their routines, rituals. And the final section of the assessment is healthy living. So in that area, we explore a person's medical needs, how they take medications, and if there's any support that's needed for medical appointments or procedures to make them most successful. And the assessment is really a way to get to know the person and help develop that person-centered and person-driven plan. The assessment sections are standardized from person to person, but the prompting within that assessment really leads to conversation that is individualized. So the assessment template is designed to be conversational, it's personalized, and it's a guide. You don't have to go, word for word off of the assessment. You really let the person in that conversation be driven and flown by, what the person feels is important and wants to talk about most. So assessment does not need to be incorporated into a formal meeting. It really should be in an environment that's most comfortable for the person. I might be much more likely to open up and really talk about what's meaningful to me if I'm sitting at Starbucks rather than in an office that I've only been to once or twice. So the conversation is meant to be driven by the individual or those who know the person best and empower the person to voice the things that would give them a good life. And this isn't something that needs to be or even should be completed in one meeting. It's ongoing and it should be developed and updated over time.
It's been fun to talk with people who have been using the Ohio ISP and SSAs and Qs and people who receive services have said, like, I thought about that and I want to add that to the communication section of my Ohio ISP, or, like thinking of the information as they are outside even the process, like maybe they've already completed the ISP, but they want to add that information. They've thought about it. So.
And things could just come up, you have a phone call with the person, or, the parent reaches out and gives you some information, and then it's ongoing. You can continuously add those really important details. So we know that there are lots of external assessments that contain really valuable information, and we don't want or need to miss out on those assessments. So important information from assessments can be summarized and then incorporated within a person's plan. So additionally, as you'll see shown on this slide, there is an option to incorporate assessments outside assessments into each area of the assessment process. Those can just be uploaded and they would be contained right in that person's file. So the assessment includes discovery tools interwoven into the template, and they provide valuable information around important aspects of the person's life. So also shown on the slide is an example of the communication chart. So this is the last portion of the communication assessment section. So those that understand the person best should actively be involved in completing this chart, so that everyone working with the person knows and understands the specifics of how that person communicates. And this doesn't just have to be for someone who does or doesn't communicate verbally. Like, this tool is such a neat tool and can be used in such a wide variety of ways. Nonverbal communication is often far more telling than communicating verbally. Like, I could say that, oh, I'm good, I'm completely fine, but maybe my hygiene's a little off and my hair is looking a little crazy, and I might be saying that everything's fine and I'm good, but my nonverbals are showing more than that. So a great example of something that could be incorporated within the communication chart. And full disclosure, I am a parent of a child with a disability who has some pretty intense medical and behavioral challenges. And I wrote a communication chart myself to hand over to the school. There are so many neat tools that are built into this. And for anyone who's been in a meeting that you felt like, wow, this is really negative, like my loved one is a great kid, and there's so much focus around negative aspects, the assessment process really focuses on and pulls out great information, good positive things about the person. It really puts that focus back on a person's strengths. So we often talk about there being a bridge from assessment to planning. So here's really where that happens. So all of those rich conversations in assessment, getting at how someone gets things they want done in their life, where they might want or need help, and what they want to accomplish. So all of that information feeds into summaries, and those summaries are then incorporated into the plan. So now that we've kind of gone over and reviewed the assessment process, we're going to look at planning. As mentioned, Planning is when we take all that information we learned and gathered during assessment and we incorporate it into the ISP. So I'm going to go over the different sections of the ISP and sort of explain what all can be incorporated in that. So there's a one-page description. As mentioned before, this is really a quick overview of the things that are most important to a person or most important to know about a person if you only have a few minutes to glance at it. So the one-page assessment is made to be fun and personalized. You can include a picture of the person or pictures that they want included. It can have different colors. The fonts can be different. We just want to make it personal and meaningful. So the next sections, we have the important to. These are things that are fed into the plan from the assessment. So important to includes what matters most to the person, those things that help them feel satisfied, content, comforted, fulfilled, happy. And then there's the important for. So these are more the things that are focused on their health, safety, well-being. It's the things that other people, us as guardians or parents, feel are necessary to really help that person be successful and a valued contributing member of the community. So we're looking at skills and abilities. What's the person good at? What can they do on their own? What do they have to contribute? And then we also look at known and likely risks. And this known and likely risks could be in communication. It could be medical needs or behavioral concerns that put the person at risk. And risk could be to their immediate health and safety. It could be risk of harm to themselves or others. It could be something that puts them at a potential risk for legal sanction. We then have the outcomes and experiences. So these should be based off really what's important to that person, what makes them feel fulfilled or helps them to live their best life. There's a service and support section. This includes paid and other supports and the things that team members should know in order to assist that person. There's an agreements and informed consent section, and this would include any restrictive measures, rights restrictions, if that is something that's a part of the person's plan. And then there's the contact information. So it's important to remember that every one of these sections are fed by the assessment. Some will be a little more complete than others. Others you may have to add a lot of additional information, but you're really getting a great start from that assessment process. So we are going to show a little bit of a glimpse into what that looks like, going from the assessment process into and how that incorporates into the plan. So in this example of Sophia here, we really are not focusing on the level of supervision or the risk. We really want you to see how the assessment feeds into the plan. So often we see something in a plan that doesn't really have connection to anything else in the ISP or vice versa. Sometimes there could be something in assessment that never gets moved into a plan. In this process, assessment really prompts the plan and drives the planning conversations. Okay. On this next slide, you're able to see some of the information that was written out in the assessment process automatically feeds into the planning process. That really gives the writer and the individual and those people on their team a little reassurance that all of that information, that important information discussed during assessment, ends up incorporated into that final plan. a really important piece of the Ohio ISP is that it really focuses on a team approach. Everyone on that team is essential and equally as important in implementing and ensuring the successes of a person's plan. As mentioned previously, the Ohio ISP and assessment help people with developmental disabilities, their families, providers, all team members to have more meaningful conversation that's focused on the person and the supports they need to help them live their best life. So we're going to take a deeper look into the SSA or QIDP. So SSA, a Service and Support Administrator, or QIDP, which is a qualified intellectual disability professional. They're the person who's writing the Ohio ISP. So the ISP is person-centered. It's a contract. This is what the person said they wanted and needed. So the SSA or QIDP's role is going to focus on these areas shown above primarily. So assessment, which we have discussed throughout, it should be fluid and ongoing. Planning, which is the development of the Ohio ISP, it uses that information from the assessment. Monitoring is an ongoing review of where the person is at with meeting their goals. And revision. So again, this is a living, breathing document. We're going to make changes to the person's plan based on changes in their life. It's meant to be ever growing and changing. So another one of those very important roles is all of you here, family, guardian members, guardians and family members. Sorry, you're all essential to the team. So guardians have a huge responsibility of advocating for the person's best interests while still considering that person's preferences and wishes. Being a family member doesn't mean speaking for the person when it's not necessary, but supporting that person to express what would make them live their best life. Often guardians and family members have a lot of rich historical information that can help really explain who the person is. So now that we've given a little background on where we started and we've seen what a plan looks like, we're going to have Abby take over and she's going to assist us with exploring how the Ohio ISP online system works, how it can be used, and what it would look like for you as the family or guardian.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you get access to Ohio ISP. First things first, you don't have to use Ohio ISP if you don't want to. I know a lot of guardians that I kind of talked to have said that they're not interested and that's not their thing, and that's totally fine. But you do have access to it and it is free, and you can always change your mind later if you decide you do want to use it. If you are interested in using it, there are kind of three basic things you need. The first thing is you're going to need an email address, not a work email address, but like a personal email address. So if you don't already have one, I suggest going to Gmail, going to Google and setting an account up there, which is free. We've got information on our website that explains that process. It's pretty quick. So once you have an email address, then you're going to need an OHID account. So if you look at the screen here, this kind of gives you a brief overview of the kind of that process. So you'll go to dodd.ohio.gov. You'll click the little silhouette and then you'll click create account, and it will step you through the process. It's pretty simple. And then once you have a confirmation that your account has been created, then you can let your case manager know. So that's the SSA or QIDP that you're working with. Let them know that you're interested in using Ohio ISP. And then on their end, they'll actually use the system to send you an email invitation. So that email address that you made, it will send you an email and you'll use the link there to then access Ohio ISP. So this video here is actually going to kind of show that process and give you a better idea of kind of what I'm talking about.
If you have access to the Ohio ISP system, you'll be able to log in and review your current and past plans. And if your case manager is using the Ohio ISP system, you can also sign plans digitally from your computer or smartphone and chat with the team online. So now you're probably wondering, how can I get access? Ask your case manager, that is the SSA or QIDP, to send you an invitation, and once invited, you'll receive an email. The email will provide you with a temporary PIN. Make note of that, and then click the link. Enter the temporary PIN, create a new password, and click Continue. Success! Your password has been created. Now it's time to check your email again. You'll receive an email letting you know your account is ready. It will also give you your new login name. Click the provided link and log in. Enter your login name and password, then click Sign In. On the DODD Applications page, click the Applications link at the top of your screen. Click the Ohio ISP tile, select the button that says I'm a provider, individual, family member, guardian delegator, or QIDP, and finally, click ODX. Congratulations, you now have access to all your plans in the Ohio ISP system.
All right, so this next video is going to talk a little bit about what the experience is. So when you go into Ohio ISP, what it'll look like, and some of the basic functionality that you'll have access to within that system.
Welcome to the Ohio ISP. Today we're going to look at the individual, guardian, and family member dashboards and user experience. After logging in, you'll see the individual's dashboard. The navigation bar at the top takes you to the sections of Ohio ISP you will use the most. The tiles on the front page are specific to your user experience. Click the home icon at any time to return to the dashboard. The Details tab displays the individual's demographic information, case management status, and other useful fields. The Team tab includes information about the individual's support system, team members, their roles, and any facilities the individual is a part of. The Plans tab includes the most recently viewed plans as well as all prior plans drafted for the individual. My Documents includes files owned and uploaded by you and documents shared with you by a team member. The Help tab includes links to Help Desk, the DODD main page, and rules in effect. The Global Search bar will help you find specific records. It searches across record types to help you find what you need, whether it's user, contact, or account. If you need help in Ohio ISP, click the Need Help launcher at the bottom corner. The Help section includes documents for setting up OHID accounts, creating a Gmail account, submitting help tickets, and more from the General Knowledge tab. Walkthroughs can be found on the Help tab. Click a walkthrough to follow a process step by step. Click on the X on any open walkthrough to exit the Smart Walkthrough. You can search for materials using the search bar. The Videos tab includes demos and useful walkthrough videos.
in addition to being able to access all those different things, there are a couple of things specifically that you'll be able to do to the ISP itself. First of all, if you need any changes made, you should reach out to the case manager. So that's the SSA or QIDP. They'll be making the actual changes. But one thing you can do is you're able to upload and view uploaded documents. You don't need anyone to do that for you. You'll be able to do that yourself. And there's also a feature called Chatter. It's kind of like social media, but it's tied specifically to that ISP. And it's a really nice way to communicate with other team members about that specific plan. So if there's a change you want made, or if there's something you're not seeing getting done, it's a great way to talk to each other, and it stays with the plan. So that information stays there and is then visible to other team members as well. So now I'm going to pass it on back.
Thanks, Abby. So now that we've walked through where we've come from and we have an understanding of the Ohio ISP and why it's important, we really want to share with you, how you can get started using it as a family member or guardian. And really that starts with talking with the SSA or the QIDP about when they plan to begin using Ohio ISP, because it's really a wide range in dates, and there's process, that they're strategically putting plans into Ohio ISP. So ask them about when they plan to use it and getting that invitation sent so that you can create your OHID account. We do have multiple resources on our Ohio ISP webpage at dodd.ohio.gov/Ohio ISP. There's sample plans on there that you can see from start to finish what a complete Ohio ISP looks like for a variety of different people. We also have frequently asked questions specific to individuals, families, and guardians, as well as SSAs and county boards, ICFs, and QIDPs, and waiver providers as well. On there, we also have those video walkthroughs to really assist people in using the system and being able to refer back to that. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We have an Ohio ISP email box that you can email at ohioisp@dodd.ohio.gov. The regional support facilitators take turns monitoring that email box every day of the week, and we're pretty prompt with responses. So feel free to reach out that way as well. So that completes our presentation. We definitely wanted to give an opportunity to everyone to ask any questions that you might have. I don't know, Lisa, if there was any questions that I've missed in the chat, or feel free to add them there or unmute and ask your questions. The video recording will be posted. Again, it will be on the Ohio ISP webpage under training. So we will get that sent and posted on YouTube, and then we'll post it on our Ohio ISP webpage as well for future reference.
Mandy, there is a question in the chat. Will all team members need to get an invitation from an SSA or QIDP?
I can answer that one.
Yes. Thank you, Abby.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. Yes. So anyone who does not otherwise have access will need it. So case managers, DSPs, nurses, other providers, people like that will have a different way of getting into the system. But guardians, individuals, family members, any close friends, people who are otherwise on the team will all need to get that invitation. So the process that I explained, where you need an email, an OHID, and then you need to ask for an invitation.
And I did put in the chat a link to our Ohio ISP website. If you want to take a look at that, like Mandy mentioned, there are a lot of great resources on there. And there was a question there, sorry, Lisa, about viewing the recording. So I did just post a link to where that will be. So that web page, there is a tab that says training on it. You can click on that tab and we'll have the recording up. It will probably be a week or so. We get subtitles and stuff added to the video first, but it will be up there soon.
We do also have a FAQ for guardians on the resources page on the Ohio ISP webpage, and I can put a link to that. That was developed from a previous webinar that took place for guardians, and so I will put the link to that in the chat so you can view that as well.
I see there's another question in the chat. Does the guardian get the OHID account under their name or the person receiving services name? You will get it under your name because you're going to be the one logging in and accessing that. Please let me know if Q&I has a different interpretation of that. But my understanding is each person, you need to have your own because you are representing yourself in the system. If the individual also wants access, then they would get their own email, their own OHID, and they would log in that way. But that is actually a very good question.
I also just put in the chat, we have a YouTube channel that has all of the videos that you've seen us go over tonight, as well as a ton of other different videos that you can go ahead and check out all the different information there.
So another question, if you're also a provider, do you need 2 OHIDs? You'll only have 1 OHID. But Heather, do you know more about how that works if they're in there as a guardian and as a provider?
So if they're in there as the 2 separates, if they're signing a plan as a provider and a guardian, they are going to need 2 separate accounts. So right now, with the way the security is set up, it doesn't recognize. If you have 1 account, it doesn't recognize that you're signing as a provider and then you're signing as a guardian. So right now, yes, you would need an OHID as your provider and a OHID as the guardian. So when you go into the system, you're signing the plan right now as the guardian or you're signing the plan as the provider. We are doing some work on our security. So we're trying to enhance the login process, the OHID login, and how trying to simplify the access. So we are looking at ways that might not be necessary in the future. But right now, unfortunately, to recognize the 2 hats that you hold, you would need the 2 accounts.
Any other questions? Again, feel free to put them in the chat. You can unmute yourself and ask. You can raise your hand, whatever you're most comfortable doing.
Yes, that would apply if you are a guardian and a county board employee. You would have your county board login for the work that you're doing as an SSA or a Q, and because you're going to have different access. Because if you're an SSA and a Q, you are creating plans. If you're going in as a guardian, you're reviewing it and signing the plan. So you would have different access. So yeah, you would need to make sure that you have those accounts set up for whichever role or whichever hat you're using at that moment.
Again, feel free to ask any questions. But thank you all for coming. We appreciate everyone being here and spending the evening with us. So we will remain on until 8 o'clock. If you don't have any questions, feel free to hop off. If you do, we'll be here. If you don't want to ask in front of a bunch of people and want to wait till people leave, we'll be here waiting. So feel free to do that. Again, this is recorded. We will have it posted on our website. And thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.